with the 4 fresher Goodyears were Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. They begin to track both of them down. Logano ended up getting by Chastain with 3 to go and took the lead. The best Busch could do was get around Briscoe. Your top 4, Logano, Chastain, Busch, Briscoe, then Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex Jr., Eric Jones, A.J. Allmendinger, and Austin Dillon in the top 10. I said Justin Haley felt like a rock. He fell right out of the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Logano now locked into your championship 4. Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and Denny Hamlin all above the cutoff line. Below it, much tighter than in the Xfinity Series, you got William Byron, who's 6 points under. Chase Briscoe, who at one point in time early on in this race was actually a lap down in Vegas. It was a nice fight back. They were chasing that car all day. Got to give credit to the Stewart-Haas Racing team for figuring out what it was with the car. So Chase Briscoe came into this race 9 points down. He comes out of that race 9 points down. Ryan Blaney, 11 under. Christopher Bell now in desperation mode because of the situation between Larson and Wallace. He's 23 under. He's the lowest seed. Yeah, he could still get in on points, but you got to remember he's got to jump over Blaney, Briscoe, and Byron just to get to be the first one under the cutoff line. So he's kind of in must-win mode anyway. In Texas, the NHRA's Camping World Drag Racing Series got in the Fall Nationals at the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Top Fuel came down to a battle between 2 guys who, quite frankly, I wouldn't have predicted being in the finals. Justin Ashley and Austin Prock. If you had them on your bingo card, congratulations, you're rich. I guarantee you didn't.
Yeah, buddy.
This pair almost exactly even off the light. Small advantage for Ashley. Then Prock lost the car, gave the win to Ashley, ran a 3.68 ADT, 329.24 miles per hour. Funny car finals between Ron Capps and Matt Hagan. Again, almost even off the light. Hagan just a hair quicker, but Capps showed power. Took the lead by the 330-foot mark, claimed the win with an ET of 3.911 at 327.18 miles per hour. Pro Stock car came down to a pairing of, shockingly, Erica Enders, and Greg Anderson. Enders with a clear advantage off the line and pretty much all over but the timing at that point. The timing came down to an ET of 6.537 for Enders at 209.63 miles per hour. And then Pro Stock Motorcycle might have been maybe the most entertaining of them all. Settled between Jerry Savoy and Hector Arana Jr. Savoy much quicker off the light, but at the 660-foot mark, Arana was able to make the pass, goes on to claim the win, ultimately with a run, a 6.822 ET, 196.35 miles per hour. And in the last Constant Aviation Factory Stock Showdown race of 2022, Aaron Stanfield taking on Bill Skillman, neither of them the champion. Skillman was not able to actually run the finals, left Stanfield to put on a show. He didn't disappoint either. Despite running all by himself, he clocked an ET of 7.764 at 165 flat. Not bad for a car you could actually buy if you have $120,000 to spare. I don't. Just to say. Justin Ashley, who claimed the Top Fuel win up there at Texas, now holds an 82-point lead. The surprising points leader over Brittany Force and Top Fuel. Antron Brown's 84 down. The defending 4-time champion Steve Torrence sits 96 points down with 2 races to go.
If there's one person I won't put it past, it's Steve Torrence.
That's a lot to cover, though. 96 points and 3 drivers to pass?
True.
Oof. But again, I agree. Steve Torrence can get hot like that. Mike Salinas in 5th, 118 back. Funny car got Robert Height leading by 10 over Ron Capps. Matt Hagan 78 down, 137 back is John Force. Bob Tasca, the third, is 5th in points, 174 back. This one is still up for grabs, certainly between the top 2. Matt Hagan maybe on the outside. Mathematically, yes, Force and Tasca have a chance, but I just don't see it happening.
Nope.
Sorry, guys.
Nope.
This is all over but the crying. Erica Enders has a 165-point lead over Aaron Stanfield in Pro Stock car. That's first to second. And it gets worse from there. Greg Anderson, 195 down, 212 back. Troy Coughlin Jr., Kyle Koretsky in 5th. He needs a telescope to see first, 227 behind. Remember, folks, only 2 more races to go in this.
Mm-hmm.
And Pro Stock Motorcycle, a little bit closer. 51-point lead by Matt Smith over Joey Gladstone. Jerry Savoy, 103 down. 118 back, Alabama's own Steve Johnson. Angie Smith in 5th, trails leader by 119 points. Constant Aviation Factory Stock Showdown all settled when David Barton qualified for the finals bracket. It was all he needed to do. He didn't need to make the finals. All he needed to do was get into the bracket. He did. He wins the 2022 division. Bill Skillman second, Aaron Stanfield third, Lenny Loddick and Mark Powick made up the top 5 in that division for the year. Good news, for those of you that were curious, our CRN live feed is now officially live.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your other option.
Yep.
Thank you, John. And our computer for finally updating. This weekend's racing. We've got the Camping World Truck Series getting things rolling, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, Saturday action. Got the Baptist Health Cancer Care, Baptist Health Cancer Care 200, Homestead, Miami. Airs on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio. Later in the day, Xfinity Series going to get in the Contender Boats 300 at Homestead, Miami. USA and MRN have that coverage starting 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. We're into the NBC portion of the schedule, so what you're probably going to find if you watch it is that the Fox Sports 1 people will actually be in the studio in Charlotte.
Yep.
Watching via monitor, and then the NBC people will be, or USA people, whatever, will be down at the track.
Yeah, that's the way it's been for a couple years now.
Sunday, Formula One in the United States, ready to run the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, sponsored by Aramco. Circuit of the Americas, obviously the 3.3-mile-long 20-turn track over there. ABC has your coverage, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, and later on Sunday, it'll be the Cup Series, getting in the Dixie Vodka 400 from Homestead, Miami. NBC, thankfully, taking the coverage along with MRN Radio, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. The NHRA has this weekend off. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of the day, and when we come back, we mentioned it, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, and then NASCAR. We'll talk about that little triumvirate and how Christopher Bell got involved in all of that coming up in just a little bit.
Before we head to break, I just want to give a shout out to Tyler.
Tyler?
Yes.
Yes.
He's our crack dealer, aka video card supplier.
Okay.
That's true. I guess we probably ought to say this. We've been, you go through growing pains and learning things, and we switched. What did we switch? Operating systems, I guess.
Well, let's see. From the start, we switched everything.
Yeah, basically.
From computers to operating systems to video, you name it.
Yeah. So we realized after last week that while the sound was pretty good, the video had left a lot to be desired. So we knew we needed a video card. We dropped and made the investment, since they actually became realistic to purchase nowadays. And so, Tyler, yes, thank you very much. We appreciate it in being our dealer. We may need another dealer later for something else. We don't know.
We won't say what either.
All right, let's go ahead and take that break after thanking Tyler, thanking you for checking us out here, no matter how it is that you're checking us out, radio, app, or CRN Live on YouTube. We'll be right back to try and dig into this situation. There's so many things to try and peel back on this Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson
thing. Let's get our drivers out, boys. Time to go to the tee box.
Yep. Here we go. You're listening to CRN Live. We appreciate you checking us out. Again, beautiful Saturday. Deal with football later. Right now, we're dealing with racing. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back right here on the Championship Racing Network.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back.
If you could build your own dealership, what would it be like? Would you hire a leader that's a servant first? Would a family feel be important? Would you build it around the people? At Toyota of Sylacauga, that's exactly what we've done. We want to be your dealership, so we've built everything around you. To the entire Coosa Valley, let us be your dealership. Toyota of Sylacauga, worth the drive, and we'll prove it.
For over 22 years, customers have counted on Mizell Heating and Air Conditioning to keep them warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Our top priority is your...
we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Appreciate you joining us here on this Saturday morning. Oh, good grief. There is no bigger story than this.
So what's the
Ladies
story?
and gentlemen, now to the number one tee box, hailing from Chelsea, Alabama, Steve West.
Yeah. Let's give you the facts first as we know them. We alluded to it in the Cup Series recap. Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson incident that turned into, well, let's just say much more. As we noted, it happened on lap number 97, coming off of turn 4. Larson under Wallace. Actually, it was 3 wide. Larson, Harvick in the middle with Bubba Wallace on the outside. Harvick seemed to realize or seemed to intuitively understand, oh, this is going to get bad, and
He
backed
bailed.
out.
He bailed.
Credit to him. Then you get Larson, who kind of starts to wash up the track. Was he loose, or was that just the fact that was the line he was taking?
He got tight.
He got tight. Okay, better. Hits the outside. He ends up washing up the track. He crowds Wallace. That gets Wallace loose. He hits the outside wall. Larson dives down to the bottom of the track, which is fairly typical for Vegas. You'll notice a lot of the drivers going down that front tri-oval, they'll dive down below the white line, which is legal,
Yep.
to hit the start-finish line and then come back up onto the main part of the track to get into turn 1. That was what Larson was doing. Well, all of a sudden, here comes Wallace's car. He shoots down to that same area, tags Larson in the right rear, causes both of them to get into a spin. Well, at that point in time, you're out of control. They end up taking out playoff driver Christopher Bell in the process. Now, if it had just been that, big word, if, that could have been chalked up to just being a racing incident, because Wallace was telling the media after getting out of the infield care center that the steering broke on his car and he didn't have control of the car, so therefore, boom. The problem with that, Bubba, is that once both Larson and Wallace come to a stop, Wallace gets out and begins purposely marching with intensity towards Larson's car, and upon getting near him, starts yelling at Larson and then shoving him. Now, Wallace had a good car. He'd led 29 laps in the race up to that point, said afterward he believed that the car did have a chance for him to actually get his 3rd career win. Larson didn't take the bait. No fight ensued. I will give him credit. He turned away a few times, tried to do an arm block, but Wallace just kept shoving until a NASCAR official stepped in and said, get the heck away from each other. That was part 1 that makes me believe that maybe the whole steering issue might have been an excuse on Wallace's part. And then you come to Monday. Everybody, the race isn't even over. The race is still 100 laps in when all of this junk is happening, and we're all going, yep, there's going to be a major penalty coming Tuesday or Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
On Monday, Wallace seemed to realize, you know what? I'm kind of in deep water here. So he issues an apology for his actions. I'm not going to quote the apology. I'm just going to sum it up for you. Wallace said that he was sorry to NASCAR's fans. He was sorry to Christopher Bell. He was sorry to Joe Gibbs Racing. And he was sorry to Toyota. He admitted he was, quote, putting them in a bad situation in the playoffs that they do not deserve. Missing from said apology, a statement that he entitled on social media, quote unquote, reflection, using air bunnies if you're watching on CRN Live on YouTube. Let me think. NASCAR fans, Toyota, Christopher Bell, Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm noticing 2 omissions. One I'm not so worried about. I didn't see 2311 in there. Not 23 by 1. 2311 Racing. It's funny, I don't seem to remember an apology to... Oh, that's right. Kyle Larson.
The individual that you duck hooked into the wall at 175 miles an hour.
Now, again, still in the fact situation here. It was all but a given that there was going to be a penalty. On Tuesday, they handed it down. A 1-race suspension. I actually called for this on Tuesday morning on the other radio station that I work on during the week. NASCAR's executive in charge of competition and racing operations, Steve O'Donnell, said that the penalties were specifically for Wallace's dangerous and deliberate retaliation against another driver, not necessarily for the shoving match in the infield grass. What O'Donnell said on Sirius XM satellite radio's NASCAR channel after the whole thing came down, he said this, quote, "When we look at how that incident occurred in our minds, it was really a dangerous act that we thought was intentional and put other competitors at risk." Read Christopher Bell, who got caught up in it. All of this marks NASCAR's first suspension for a driver for on-track action since Matt Kenseth was parked actually for 2 races back in 2015 for an on-track retaliation against Joey Logano late in the season. I believe it was at Martinsville. 2311 Racing announced, properly, that they would not be appealing the suspension. So no Bubba Wallace in the 45 this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Instead, it'll be John Hunter Nemechek driving the 45 at Homestead Miami come Sunday. Now we get to break out the drivers. First of all, there has been, ever since that pull rope incident at Talladega, a ridiculous amount of backlash against Bubba Wallace. To the point where I have actually become something of a Bubba Wallace supporter because I think it's overblown and, truth be told, not necessary. First of all, Bubba Wallace wasn't in the garage when the rope pull was discovered. He was not the one that reported it to Talladega officials. He didn't call in the FBI. When the crew member reported it to Talladega officials called in the authorities who called in the FBI. Bubba Wallace had nothing to do with it. So get over that.
Yeah, because at that time we personally know how stringent and how tight garage access was that particular weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, tighter than tight.
And secondly, by the way, for those of you that say, oh, it wasn't a noose, for those people who are not experts on nooses, thankfully I'm one of them, I can tell you right now, I've seen pictures of them, and because I know people, I work at Talladega, so does Matt, remember? We've seen the picture. I hate to tell you this. For an uneducated person who really doesn't know, a noose from a rope pull kind of resembles a noose. Sorry, but it did. Was it meant to be a noose? No. Not even going to go there. No, it was not meant to be one, but yeah, it kind of resembled one. Why? Because it made it easier to make the loop so that you could pull down on the rope. That's it. But
yeah,
then you get the situation where they go, okay, well, he really didn't deserve the win that he got at Talladega. It was rain delayed. How many people have gotten a win because of rain? How many people got their first win because it was called for rain?
Let's see, people that win races because of rain. Let's go. Dale Earnhardt Jr. won one at Phoenix because of rain, I know. Jeff Gordon's won quite a few because of rain. Chris Buescher won. Matt Kenseth won some because of rain. We don't have enough time for the rest of the show.
No.
I could start from Cup and go all the way down to stinking ARCA.
Yeah. So a win is a win. And he got a win earlier on this year as well. A legitimate one, if you'd like to put it that way, because it was a full race. And if you look at it, all drivers have a learning curve. It's in every sport, too. You want to we're in high school football season right now and college football season in the state of Alabama, and obviously that means the NFL's going on. If you're lucky enough to go from high school to college, there's a learning curve to learn the speed and the difference between what you did in high school and what you did in college. And if you're lucky enough at that point in time to be so good in college that you get to go to the NFL, you got another learning curve because everything speeds up that much more and the game is that much harder. Same thing in baseball. If you go through high school and you're lucky enough to go to college or get drafted immediately and go into the minor league system, from high school to the next system that you go into, there's a learning curve. And as you step up from single A to double A to triple A, the learning curve in each one of those, and then you get to the majors. Boom. It all is that much harder. And to go from where Bubba Wallace started, to go into the trucks, to go into Xfinity, and to go into Cup, there's a learning curve on each one. Some athletes, some drivers never get it. And they're never able to be that driver who's going to be a winner at the Cup level. And I'm not trying to disrespect Justin Allgaier or anybody, but you find yourself in a situation where, you know what, the Xfinity Series is a much more comfortable place for me.
Matt Grafton in trucks. That's
is a
another one.
much more comfortable place for him.
Yep.
Some drivers just simply never get it, Danica Patrick. But Bubba seems to have, if you get rid of your biased look at things and start looking at statistics, you start to realize Bubba Wallace was actually starting to get it. Ever since that major dust-up where basically he and his crew chief didn't talk for an entire half a race earlier this year, all of a sudden the performance just picked up.
Yeah.
He started to get it. I can defend Bubba Wallace for a whole heck of a lot. I could have defended Bubba Wallace if this had just remained a racing incident and the two of them had walked away. I cannot, Bubba Wallace, defend what you did to Kyle Larson and then listen to you blame the steering rack or whatever the situation that you're claiming was the problem on your 45 for not only taking out Kyle Larson, but taking out Christopher Bell. And I can't defend the fact that you did not include Hendrick Motorsports and Kyle Larson in your apology. You're wrong. And you deserve to be sat down for a race. No, I don't think you deserve to be sat down for the rest of the season. But one race, absolutely. Now, what Matt Kenseth did to Joey Logano at Martinsville, yeah, I think that did require two.
Yeah.
Was it 1 or 2 years before when Kyle Busch took out Ron Hornaday in the Truck Series race?
2013.
So it was 2 years before Kenseth. He ends up taking out Ron Hornaday in clear retaliation in the Truck Series race on a weekend when they're doing Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup all the same weekend, and Busch was entered into all three races. NASCAR parked him for the rest of the weekend. Took him out of the Xfinity and the Cup Series race. He was back the next weekend. Kind of a precedent set there. I have zero problem with them sitting Bubba Wallace for a race. My problem with this, truth be told, is no, I can't defend Bubba Wallace's actions after the fact. He had no reason to go after Kyle Larson. He certainly had no reason to get into a shoving and a shouting match with Kyle Larson, who was clearly trying to back away and defuse the situation. No, I'm sorry. You deserve to be sat down for a race. I find zero evidence, none, that there was a steering problem on that 45. I've watched the replay. I've looked at it. I can't find anywhere where either one of the front wheels had it hit to the point where it was stuck and made him go down into the 5 car. I can't find it.
You can't. You're not going to find that anywhere. I'm going to pull out the 8.5 degree driver on this one. He pulled a 10 degree driver out. I'm pulling 8.5 out. I'm going long ball. I'm going Happy Gilmore on this one. All right. Full complete agreement. There's no excuse for what happened. None. The NBC telemetry that they showed afterwards that showed that those green lights under the throttle were pegged, and I mean pegged. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was full-blown retaliation.
Yeah,
all right.
And then he comes up with an excuse. I don't lift.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's anybody that knows the acronym CYA, that was a CYA move. Because you don't admit fault live on camera. Because C. William Byron. C. Who's the other one? My mind just went blank. But specifically William Byron, he admitted that he did wreck Hamlin under caution.
Oops.
Yeah. All right. Secondly, if anybody remembers the little incident that happened back, I think it was 2014, when there was an incident that happened in New York to where an idiot driver walked across a hot racetrack and was hit by a vehicle.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's that.
Said driver is now at rest. Let's call it that right there.
Yep.
Everybody's cordially forgetting that one right there. Because all it would have took was a lap car coming around to catch the tail end of the field. Uh-oh. I just hit somebody in a red suit walking across the track.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say that it couldn't happen.
Yeah, there's a reason why NASCAR said, unless your car's on fire, stay in your cars until the safety crew gets there.
Or stay at your car. Okay. To all of these people, and I've been watching social media pretty tight. Really tight, actually. to all these people that were trying to defend his move, all these media people that are crying, oh, this is unprecedented. Oh, my gosh.
Have you watched NASCAR?
Has anybody that I'm just going to say this. If I was the chief editor or over your specific respective corporation or outlet that you write for, your credentials are immediately getting pulled. And I'm going to call one out specifically.
Okay.
Daniel McFadden of frontstretch.com. He is screaming at the top of his lungs, oh, this is unprecedented. Oh, not only this could happen to somebody like Bubba Wallace. Stop playing this idiotic, stupid race car. Stop it. Just absolutely stop it.
Yeah.
Ask Matt Kenseth if they played the card on him. Ask Kyle Busch if they played the card on him. Oh, Carson Hocevar did it at IRP. Nothing happened. Noah Gregson did it at Road America. He only got fined $30,000 and $35,000 and 30 points. There's a considerably massive difference here. Considerably. One, where it happened at Road America, they were coming off of a slow speed turn going into, I think it was turn 6, headed not towards Canada Corner, up towards the Johnsonville Bridge. There you go, Mike Begley. They were at a slow speed corner coming through the gears. Big difference here. IRP. If I'm not mistaken, IRP is about a 65 to 70 mile per hour speed difference than Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Much different.
These media people, Daniel McFadden included, and some people from NBC that really, really surprised me that they wrote what they wrote. I'll just leave them unnamed. Until you put a helmet on, until you cinch that chin strap up, until you latch a 5-point harness, stop making judgment of what happened from behind the pin versus from behind a visor and behind a steering wheel.
There's a difference.
Stop it.
Yep.
There is a massive, and I mean massive difference of knowing what that feels like, because it is, I'm going to call it a gentleman's rule. A gentleman's rule. One thing that you do not do is deliberately, and this is my phrase, you duck hook them in the right rear corner, head on into the wall, or driver's side first. Because the way Kyle Larson hit that wall, think back to Jerry and they do in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the wall flush.
And think about the fact that we are now 2 drivers down. Kurt Busch, who we'll get back to in a minute, and Alex Bowman, who got concussions from seemingly hits that were a lot less
Considerably less.
hard than what Kyle Larson hit in Las Vegas. This is endangering not only other drivers, and it did take out Christopher Bell, it endangered Kyle Larson as well. Because once you spin out a driver, you really have no control, neither does the driver in the car, over where they're going to end up.
Or the angle you're going to hit the wall.
You don't know how many people you could endanger in that situation. If the car goes out of control the wrong way, he either ends up on the outside wall, which he did, or he ends up on pit wall.
Now think about this here.
I actually know. Would you
By all
like the
means.
answer?
Sure.
Everyone else on the track.
Yeah, you're endangering literally everyone else on the track, including yourself,
Exactly.
because you have no control once you spin out another driver.
All right, let's go. And thank goodness he's so far. Let's use the term so far.
Okay.
He shows no signs of any kind of concussion symptoms, and
Yeah.
he's been okay.
I can guarantee you they checked him out in the infield care center.
I guarantee you he got checked out hard. Let's just say when he did get hooked and turned, that car had to carry this momentum just enough to where, Kyle Larson hit the wall with the rear of the car.
Yep.
Kyle Larson releases said statement on Wednesday. Due to concussion, after the accident in Las Vegas, I've had some concussion symptoms. I'm going to be out the rest of the year. Guess what? You think the screaming has been bad now? It would have been 50 times worse if he had have gotten knocked out for the rest of the year because of an idiotic, stupid move.
Yep.
The last person I'm going to call out, I'm going to call the media people out contingent. The last person I'm going to call out is Bubba's own spotter, Freddie Kraft. After the penalties handed down, he puts on his social media, unprecedented. Freddie.
Sorry, Freddie, it's not.
Freddie, you're smarter than that, man. You know, yeah, a spotter's going to have his driver's back. I get it. Just like if John was my spotter, I know John would have my back. If I was Steve's spotter, Steve would have my back. Or I'd have Steve's back for his actions. But you know that was stupid and boneheaded. You know it was. Admit it. Publicly admit it. Yeah, that wasn't right on him. He shouldn't have done that. He should have kept his cool. It's racing. It wasn't like Larson deliberately punted him in the wall. No. If you watch it slow-mo enough, when Larson gets to that certain point, the pocket of air off of his car actually pushes Wallace in the wall.
Yeah. There was never actually contact
pocket
between the
of
5
air
and the
pushed him in the
45 until Bubba Wallace instigated it.
You know what was wrong, Freddie. And there's been no actual, complete, total confirmation, but from words that I've seen used, Denny Hamlin made the call of no appeal.
No, I can believe
Set
that.
him down.
I can believe that.
Set him down. Make him learn.
That's one of the first things this year that I've actually can say I applaud Denny Hamlin about. There's been something about Denny Hamlin this year that it's kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but that nice move on Denny Hamlin.
And really kind of putting a bow on this one right here, I guess you could say. When they unloaded the 45 car at Homestead, Miami yesterday, and everybody looks and John Hunter Nemechek's name's above the door and on the back windshield. Oh, this is not this is uncommon. Normally, substitute drivers, when they drive the cars, the permanent driver's name is still above the door and on the windshield. Guess what, people? It's called making them learn their lesson. Make them be embarrassed.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm John Hunter Nemechek and Denny Hamlin calls me and says, hey, you probably seen Bubba got suspended. Yeah? Can you drive the 45 this weekend? Sure. We're going to put your name above the door. But if you didn't put my name above the door, I won't drive in the car. I mean, how do you think Ty Gibbs feels driving with Kurt Busch's name still above the door of the 23 car?
Yeah, I think he would rather have his own name above it.
Sure. I mean, he's got his own Cup fire suit with his name on his Cup fire suit. Kurt's name is above the door. Kurt's name's on the windshield.
Technically, it's still Kurt's car.
Yeah, thank you. So, when you do something stupid, suffer the stupid consequences.
So, for Bubba, I want you to come back. You need to be a leader. Somebody's got to be that leader. Wendell Scott's no longer around. You're it, whether you want to be or not.
But come back with your head screwed on with all the threads not showing.
There was a reason why the people who broke color barriers in all the major sports were chosen.
Yeah.
All you got to do is look up the Jackie Robinson story. There's a reason why Branch Rickey of the then Brooklyn Dodgers chose Jackie Robinson to be that guy. Because Jackie Robinson basically said, okay, I can keep my emotions in check because I understand there's going to be a lot of backlash. And there were a lot of people saying a whole lot of stupid stuff to him and doing stupid things. He kept his cool. Kept his cool for as long as Branch Rickey told him to, which I think was actually 2 seasons. And then it was on. Bubba, keep your cool. If you got to take an anger management class, do it. But keep your cool. You got a lot of light on you from people that love you, from people that like you, and from people that can't stand you. Get your emotions in check.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, we just talked about the big penalty, but there was another penalty handed down. I'm curious as to how this is going to work. It's the latest in the wheel coming off penalty syndrome for this year. It was handed down to Kyle Busch and the 18 crew. Crew chief Ben Bayshore and two crew members, the tire changer and the jackman, have been suspended for the next 4 races. As I count, there's not 4 races left in this year, which means that this will technically carry over into 2023 through the Daytona 500.
Yep.
And then there's the other side of it in the fact that the driver actually won't be affected for that entire time because Kyle Busch is going to be in the 8 car at Richard Childress Racing come the Daytona 500 of next year.
Yep.
But hey, that's the way that the penalty goes, I guess. All right, another big news. One that we actually teased as we were getting off the air last Saturday happened literally minutes after our show ended. Thanks for the timing, Kurt. Kurt Busch has made things a little bit easier on 2311, not 23x1 racing. He officially has retired from Cup Series racing on a full-time basis, meaning that the team isn't going to have to go search out and pay for that third charter to put him, Wallace, and their 2023 addition, Tyler Reddick, onto the track at the same time. We'll get back to that. 44-year-old former Cup champion said that the doctors told him that it is, quote, best for me to shut it down. I know I'm not 100% in my ability to go out and race at the top level in the NASCAR Cup Series. These are the best of the best drivers, and lately I haven't felt my best. My long-term health is priority number 1, and I don't feel that committing at this point to compete for a championship next year is in my best interest or the best interest of the team. That is an alarming realization for a person to come to. And for Kurt Busch to understand it and not try to fight through it, congratulations, man. Because there's a lot of people who would not have made that same decision with that level head.
I agree.
That being said, it also shows to me, and we'll get back to this in a little bit, the maturation of Kurt Busch. Because Kurt Busch, for a while, had the nickname The Outlaw, and he deserved it. He earned it.
Yeah.
The difference between then and now is amazing. So here we go with the ripple effects of this. Kurt Busch is out. Reddick does take over the 45 beginning at the Daytona 500 2023. For the remainder of this year, the presumptive 2023 Cup Series driver Ty Gibbs, who we expect to take over the 18 next season, will fill out the rest of the season in place of Kurt Busch. That's what we expected anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Busch did hint he may not totally be done with racing in the Cup Series, however. He said, quote, I will get back to 100%, I promise. If I'm cleared, maybe you'll see me at a few select races next season.
Oh, he'll be cleared.
Oh, yeah. His retirement leaves, here's an interesting link, by the way. It leaves only Kevin Harvick now as the on-track connection to the days. Remember when we used to call the Cup Series the Winston Cup Series?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Harvick becomes the last driver that ran under that banner on track.
It's crazy.
Busch ends his full-time Cup career, one that began back in 2000. Then he was competing for Rookie of the Year in 2001 for Roush Racing, not yet Roush Fenway Racing at that point. But he got fired from there after 5 seasons, all of them tumultuous, talked about it, led up to his nickname, The Outlaw. But it did include him winning a Cup title in 2004. So when he got fired after the 05 season, it actually became kind of a shock. Really? You're firing a title-winning driver only a year after he won the title? But yep, they did. In 2006, he went over to Team Penske and from Ford to Dodge, but he was gone from Team Penske but after the 2011 season. Went from Dodge to Chevrolet and James Finch's Phoenix Racing team. That was 2011. That was a 1-year deal. 2013 found himself at Furniture Row Racing, where he showed or began to show a noted maturity both on and off the track. He was brought on to complete a 4-car operation at Stewart-Haas Racing in 2014 when they finally fielded the number 41. It was a decision more made by Gene Haas than Tony Stewart. Some people thought that might be the end of the relationship between the two of them, but apparently they got over it.
Mm-hmm.
He missed the first 3 races of 2015 due to a bogus domestic violence allegation to a lady who later found herself in federal legal trouble. He then moved to Chip Ganassi Racing and on to 2311 Racing, getting into his first Toyota. So it makes him one of only 2 that we can figure to race and win in all 4 major marques, joining only Casey Kane, although one of Casey Kane's wins wasn't actually a points race, it was the dual race.
Yep.
And he was one of only 5 or so drivers to race all 4 car makers in the Cup Series. Of course, we're talking about the current 3, Chevrolet, Ford, Toyota, and, of course, Dodge. So we got Kane, we got Kurt Busch, and you figured on these others, and you can't, and trust me, if there's anybody who could figure it out, it's the guy that we have nicknamed up in the PA booth, Rain Man. He only has come up with 3 others. They are?
Bobby Labonte. He drove for Gibbs in a Chevrolet. He drove for Petty in a Dodge. He drove for JTG in a Toyota. And when he drove the now defunct Hall of Fame racing car, was in a Ford.
He actually has 5 if you look at it, because in his tenure at Joe Gibbs Racing, he
Pontiac.
started off in a Chevrolet and actually drove a Pontiac too.
Yep.
But
He did.
that's beside the point.
He did. Second one. Anybody remember Dave Blaney?
I had to think about that for a couple of minutes because I remember him so well in the Amoco BP Dodge Charger. And I had to stop and think about the other ones.
Yeah, when it started, that was actually the Intrepid.
Yeah, that's true.
Intrepid. Yeah, Dave Blaney that drove for Bill Davis in a Dodge and a Toyota.
That's true.
Toyota.
That's true.
He drove the 77 Jasper Engines car in a Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Then he drove for RCR in a Chevrolet.
There you go.
And this one right here is the one that's probably going to stump everybody, but Jeremy Mayfield actually drove all 4.
We think of him basically running for Team Penske.
Penske was the Ford. He drove for Evernham in the Dodge. He did have a stint at Bill Davis in a Toyota. And then before it actually became Stewart-Haas, Haas CNC in a Chevrolet.
In Chevrolet. So there you go. Not too many people have been able to do it.
Not many at all.
And speaking of not many people being able to do it, he and his brother Kyle are actually only the second brother combination to claim Cup Series titles, trailing only Bobby and Terry Labonte. Kurt claims 34 wins in the Cup Series to 776 starts. That includes winning the 2017 Daytona 500 for Stewart-Haas Racing. It is said that he will remain as the ambassador for his current sponsor, Monster Energy Drink. Reportedly, he and Fox Sports are talking to each other about doing some television work, and that'll be well-deserved, I think. Kurt has a lot of knowledge there. He seems comfortable behind a microphone, but he's going to have to let his personality show a little bit more. He's been, ever since he dropped the Outlaw nickname, he's become quite reserved. He's going to have to let a little bit more of that personality loose.
True. Very true.
So hopefully he'll be able to make that work, and I think he will. Either way, as we mentioned, we know Tyler Reddick now has the 45, which will be Kurt Busch's old car. The 8 will be taken over by Kyle Busch. How about some other moves? Welcome to silly season, right? Over at Petty GMS Racing, we do know that Noah Gragson's taking over the 42 next year. He displaces Ty Dillon. Talk about a guy who just can't seem to catch a break. Where does Ty go? Well, we didn't know until this week, but Spire Motorsports has announced they're finally going to put a full-time driver in their flagship car, the number 77. Their first full-time Cup car, Ty Dillon, becomes that guy. Okay. This car has seen 4 different drivers this season alone, but according to Spire co-owner Jeff Dickerson, he wants the car to transition to a single driver to make the 77 officially championship eligible as the team continues to grow. I like your ambition there, Jeff, but you got work to do. Ty is the second racing grandson of Richard Childress. He's bounced around Cup and Xfinity quite a bit. Truly thankful for this chance to prove himself. Probably beyond thankful, truth be told, behind the scenes. He's set to team up now with Corey LaJoie in the number 7 car. LaJoie has been full-time in the 7 car the past couple of years, and it has paid off. He's got a top 5 and 2 top 10 finishes this year. We're starting to see where it seems like at least the 7 car is beginning to get it. And I think they realize that having the full-time driver, one single driver for all of the races throughout the course of the year, actually has benefits. So here comes the question.
It does.
Does this move the needle? Other than having the stability for our resident driver, Matt Nicholson, other than having the stability of one single driver for all the races in the number 77, again, the first chartered car that Spire Motorsports ever had, and we were wondering why it took them so long to figure out that they just needed one single driver for the entire year. Does this move the needle for the 77? That's pretty much what I thought.
No.
The other question will be, how many more chances will Ty Dillon get? He's on a very short rope.
Very, very little.
Very short rope.
Because when this was announced through the week, for the ones watching YouTube, here was my reaction when it was announced that Spire was going to, Ty Dillon was going to Spire.
Yeah.
Huh?
Bewilderment. And I didn't hear it. I didn't get the notification. My notification came from Matt. And you and I pretty much had the same reaction. Huh?
That is not a lateral move. That is a backwards move.
Yeah, from Petty GMS to Spire. Sorry, Jeff, but your team is a step down from Petty GMS. We have seen what the combination of Richard Petty and GMS Racing has done. Look at Eric Jones. Look at what Eric Jones has done this year. Compare what Eric Jones in the 43 has done to what Ty Dillon has done in the 42. It's night and day.
At 8:55 a.m. on October the 22nd, 2022, in this very station, I'm going to say these words.
Central time, by the way, for those of you that
Central
are in
time.
other time zones.
9:56 a.m. Now 9:56 a.m. Eastern time. If Noah Gregson gets 2 top 5s next year, 2, which is very realistic, it will establish that the car is not the problem.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here. Before the 2023 season is over, with Noah Gregson, that 42 gets into victory lane.
I can't say that I disagree with that.
We've seen it happen in the 43, and I think Noah Gregson is the kind of driver who can get that car, the 42, into victory lane. They've got the equipment. I believe it. I've seen it. Eric Jones has proven it. Noah Gregson's that kind of a driver. Noah Gregson is a great hot shoe who, on a lesser extent than Bubba Wallace, sometimes needs to get his emotions in check. If both Bubba and Noah could just keep level heads behind the wheel and when they get out of the car, when bad things happen, I don't see a ceiling. They can go as high as they want. They can go as far as they want. They can do whatever they want. I think they could legitimately become championship contenders, both of them. Noah Gregson's that talented. That car, I believe, is that good. And once he and the crew chief get all of their stuff straightened out and their communications laid down, which I think will only take about 4 or 5 races, start looking in the summertime, start watching for that 42 to be up front. Start leading laps, start competing for wins. I think he will grab a checkered flag before the end of 2023. And then we know. Sorry, folks, wasn't the driver. I'm sorry, it wasn't the car. It was the driver.
I would have taken a higher level Xfinity car and swallowed my pride a little bit than go into a backmarker cup car that outside of a super speedway with Landon Castle in the car of all people, you're lucky to sniff top 25.
Well, I mean, let's face it. We've talked about this before many, many times. When it comes to when it comes to speedway racing, you know, we've all, you and I both have had our situations where we've talked about Landon Castle in the past, and we have often wondered why in the world can't Landon Castle seem to get a good car, because he always seemed to be one of the most talented drivers in a backmarker car. And now he's in a great car, Calic Racing, and it shows.
Yeah.
Ty Dillon, on the other hand, is not one of those drivers who he said, why can't he get a better car? Ty Dillon has really had good cars. When he was with Germain Racing, those cars were built by Richard Childress.
They weren't slouch cars.
But he never seemed to be able to do anything with it.
Nope.
In the same cars at Petty GMS Racing that Eric Jones has been running top 15, top 10, top 5, and even claimed to win with, Ty Dillon can't seem to sniff a top 10, much less a top 5.
He hardly sniffed top 20.
So there's a problem there. And I think the Petty GMS realized it, and they got it fixed. And they're going with another driver next year.
Deviated septum.
Is that what it is? Portions of today's show being brought to you by our good friends over at Ox Foundation Solutions. Michael Hart is the guy that you're going to want to call or email if you're anywhere in the state of Alabama and you have a question about your foundation on your home. Let's face it, if it's not the biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life, it's certainly one of them. You want to make sure that it's going to last you a long time. 205-362-6419, Mike at oxfoundations.com. What are you looking for? Windows or doors that are hard to open or shut, maybe some cracks in the bricks on the outside, the basement walls, maybe the sheetrock inside, or maybe you're just noticing water or damp floors in your basement or crawl space. Does it mean you have a foundation failure? No. Does it mean that's possible? Oh, yeah. Don't take chances.
Talladega Short Track affection.
It's a big, big investment, as we talked about. You're going to want to make sure that you get everything set and ready to go. Ox Foundation Solutions and our good friend Michael Hart, they're the person you need to contact. Mike at oxfoundations.com. Michael, 205-362-6419. Tell him you heard about it right here on CRN. If you have a problem, make sure you tell him you heard about it here on CRN, and the promo code WEST gets you 15% off if you need to have a repair.
Talladega Short Track, affectionately called the Hornet's Nest, is located across the street and just east of the Talladega Superspeedway on Speedway Boulevard in East.
Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Hour number 2, I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers. Thank you for joining us here. And if you missed hour number 1, you missed a lot. And where you been? We always start at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Please join us, won't you? Still talking about Cup Series racing for a couple more moments here. 2 things to get to. Number 1, Stewart Haas Racing looks to continue into 2023, it appears, with their same quartet of drivers. But they are hoping to get things overturned when it comes to the 41 car. You might remember when Cole Custer was charged with, quote, artificially altering, unquote, the end of the race at the Charlotte Roval when he moved over and let his teammate Chase Briscoe get a clean pass near the end of that race 2 weeks ago, while at the same time ending up blocking competitors. If you missed last week's show, go on to YouTube and find last week's show where we commented on that. Custer and his team got 50-point deductions for driver and owner. Crew chief Mike Shiplett was fined $100,000 and suspended indefinitely. The team appealed the penalties almost immediately, and the hearing for the appeal actually is set for this coming Thursday, the 27th, in front of the National Motorsports Appeals Panel. And depending on which way it goes, there's one more appeal available if so desired. Stewart Haas Racing has already said we have both barrels of our gun loaded, and we're ready to fire.
Yep. They're, I think the appeal is going to be heard Tuesday of this coming week.
Thursday,
that's right.
Then there's NASCAR, who's looking to, and I'm still a little baffled by this. They're trying to cut down on rain delays at some tracks, and I know that Mother Nature tends to get involved more often than what we would like. I get that. As we know, the Cup Series does have a rain package for road courses, and as it turns out, the Chicago Street Course for 2023. But the ovals hadn't had anything. Until now, maybe? Series officials want a wet weather package that they could run, but only on the short tracks. Package would be similar to the road course package, including a single windshield-centered wiper, put flaps behind the wheels to reduce the spray. They would add rain lights on the back of the cars. We'll get back to that in a second. And, of course, the Goodyear rain tires. More lights would be added. They're actually going to put 2 inside the rear window, one on the left, one on the right, and then add 2 mounted on the right and the left below the rear bumper, kind of along the diffuser line. Me personally, I'd stick them in the bumper if it was me, but that's just me. Thing is, there's a reason why we don't run treaded tires on oval tracks. They can only handle so much of the pressure. So this, to me, is kind of only going to be available on the flatter tracks. Martinsville, New Hampshire, maybe Richmond, maybe Phoenix.
I was thinking more Phoenix more than Richmond.
I could see that. But it's going to have to be, you're not going to be able to do this at a Bristol.
No.
It's not going to work at Bristol.
No.
It's not going to work at Dover. You know, I'm thinking mile or less, and we don't have a whole lot of them out there right now. I'm not so certain this would work at North Wilkesboro.
I could see Wilkesboro. Honestly, could see it because this. I'm going to say the tracks where your average speed is less than 120.
Okay. Definitely. There's that Bristol and Dover.
It leaves Bristol out, leaves Dover out.
So you got New Hampshire, which is all pretty flat, really flat.
New Hampshire's going to be very close.
You got Martinsville.
You got Martinsville.
Which is, I mean, let's face it, they got to slow way down to do a paperclip turn.
You've got...
Phoenix is an interesting case for me because Phoenix ain't that slow.
Yeah, but it's flat enough.
Think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Martinsville, Wilkesboro. Phoenix is borderline. That's really going to be it.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to invest a lot of money into doing this for, what, 6 or 7 road and street course races next year.
I think 6.
And 2 at Martinsville, 1 at New Hampshire. We'll throw Phoenix in there and say Phoenix. So 2 at Phoenix, 2 at Martinsville, One at New Hampshire. 12 races? Okay, so that's a third of the year. I don't know. I got to see it in action. I'm not really sure it's going to work. Time will tell.
This is funny, watching practice.
Yeah.
This is so funny.
That's true. Cup Series is rolling.
They just got rolling. Yeah. And the car at the top so far, keyword so far.
It's early.
45 car.
Yeah. See what you did, Bubba?
Yep.
You had a great car.
Yep.
He gave it to somebody
Yeah,
else.
choked it away.
Over to the Xfinity Series as we continue to roll on here in hour number 2. Junior Motorsports solidifying their driver lineup for 2023. Within a couple of days of his claiming the win at Las Vegas and putting himself into the championship four, Josh Berry and Junior Motorsports came to terms on an extension through the 2023 season. Berry's actually run for Junior Motorsports in one way or another since 2010. He's run in the late model branch where he claimed 94 wins and, let's just say, a handful of championships in this time there. Started running short tracks in Xfinity competition, won in only his 6th start in an Xfinity Series car. That was Martinsville just last year, then won again in Las Vegas last year. Subbed in the one car for Michael Annett, who retired at the end of the year after injuries, also kind of mounted. And Berry was announced to take over the 8 car for this year. Berry said that Junior Motorsports is his home. Thanked Dale Jr., Kelly Earnhardt Miller, and Rick Hendrick for their support. I smile at that because we've constantly talked about the fact that Rick Hendrick and Dale Jr. are very, very closely allied. But the thing about it is, Jeff Gordon's set to take over Hendrick Motorsports, and Junior Motorsports continues to talk about getting into the Cup Series. Wondering about that relationship at that point in time.
Yep.
I think it'll continue. Rick Hendrick Motorsports probably will continue to build their cars and prep their cars for them, but at some point in time, Junior Motorsports is going to have to figure this out on their own.
Yeah, it's coming sooner rather than later.
The win by Berry last weekend, by the way, in Vegas also marked a milestone for the car maker, Chevrolet. They are the winningest car maker in Xfinity Series history. Berry notched their 500th win all time. It also locked in Chevrolet's 24th manufacturer's title in Xfinity Series / Busch Series / whatever it was before that competition. Since moving to the Camaro 10 years ago, by the way, the Camaro has dominated Xfinity competition. It's won 8 of those manufacturer's titles. Not bad, 1/3 of the 24 all time.
Yep.
And another bit of news for Junior Motorsports is that one of their longtime sponsors, as it turns out, of Josh Berry, Tire Pros, has signed an extension to their deal. They're going to be a primary sponsor of Berry's for 9 races next year and get prime associate sponsor placement for the remainder of that schedule. Marks their 3rd year on the 8 car. The races that they're going to be primary will be announced at a later date. This is kind of more speculation than anything else. We talked about last weekend Hailie Deegan making her Xfinity Series debut, and we wondered how good she was going to be. What we did know was this. She was going to get good equipment. She was going to get in the 07 for SS Greenlight Racing, and you go, how's that good equipment? Well, as it turns out, the 07 in this case was built and prepped and at least partially staffed by Stewart-Haas Racing. And she finished 13th. Pretty impressive performance for her debut. When she was asked about it afterwards, she noted again that she does not have plans set in stone for 2023 yet, adding she would like to move up to Xfinity Series competition. Again, SS Greenlight Racing was technically the owner on the 07 Ford Mustang, but prepared by and had a Stewart-Haas Racing pit crew for the most part. She knows that it's going to get more expensive than her time in the truck. She said, quote, when you run great, it helps deals for the future. Running Xfinity costs a very big bill, and you have to have sponsors to pay that bill. Just trying to get the funding set. It's definitely tough. Still trying to figure out what we're doing. I would say it's pretty high accomplishment. When you move up a level, the drivers get better, the competition gets tougher, and it gets tighter. And she's going to have to, and she started to. We've seen this in Camping World Truck Series action. She came in rough, a little bit like a bull in a china shop. She's kind of smoothed off the rough edges there.
She has.
And seems to have settled into a nice little run, and she really comported herself very well in Vegas last weekend in Xfinity.
She did. She very much did, and I think that it puts Joe Graff on notice.
It puts Joe Graff on notice, number one. It also kind of should put Riley Erbst on notice, because I think one way or another, Stewart-Haas Racing might be trying to figure out a way to get Hailie Deegan up into Xfinity competition. And who's their sponsor? Oh, that's right. The same one that Riley has, Monster Energy.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. One more note in Xfinity competition. ARCA Menard Series champion Nick Sanchez gets 2 more shots behind the wheel this year in Xfinity Series action. He's going to run the number 48 for Big Machine Racing. He's run 3 races for them so far, but he's going to get Martinsville and Phoenix, the 2 end-of-season races, to add to that slate. He does have 2 top 15 finishes, 12th last weekend at Las Vegas and earlier this year when he got 11th at Texas. How long before we start seeing Nick Sanchez in the top 3 levels in NASCAR?
Sooner rather than later.
Next year?
More than likely.
Okay. Camping World Truck Series, couple of notes here. We noted on the race schedule for this weekend that the Camping World Truck Series does run on Saturday. Homestead, Miami returns to the Southern Florida track. Get a map out, West. Southern Florida track after skipping the track in 2021. Interesting to note that even though it was actually only 1 year off, with all the driver changes in the Truck Series, there is not one driver currently running full-time in the Truck Series who has a win at Homestead, Miami.
Well, that's going to change today, it looks like.
Uh-huh. Grant Enfinger and John Hunter Nemechek are the only 2 that have even gotten close. They do have second-place finishes, respectively, there. And, oh, by the way, Chase Purdy, who made the playoffs in 2021, got a ride over at Hattori Racing based kind of at least partially on that. Is one and done at Hattori Racing Enterprises. The team announced via social media that they have amicably parted officially at the end of the year. He will not be in the 61 truck next year. Purdy just hasn't been as successful as hoped this year. He's only racked up a pair of top 10 finishes. His best result at Talladega a few weeks ago, where he claimed 7th. No word from the team yet on the future of that truck, if they field it, who the driver is going to be, or whether they're going to continue to field it.
As far as I've seen, they're going to continue to field it. It's just a matter of who gets in the seat.
That becomes the question.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, I think Nick Sanchez is available.
Yeah, and I'm going to do. Oh, he's under Chevrolet.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, but I think I'm going to go back to the tee box and tee off on the back 9 here.
Okay, come on.
Yesterday, I don't know what this stunt was that, and I'm going to call it a stunt. NASCAR pulls with Truck Series. Here's my said stunt that I'm talking about. You practice, you get the full practice session in.
Mm-hmm.
You have a small little rain shower that gets the track just wet enough it needs to be dry.
Which we've seen.
You get said racetrack completely dry.
How long did it take?
30 minutes, maybe.
Okay, so you get delayed half an hour.
Long.
Big deal.
Qualifying gets canceled.
Huh?
Why?
You?
Said same thing happens in Xfinity. Guess who qualifies?
Oh, that's right.
Xfinity.
I watched it, at least partially, yesterday afternoon/evening.
Get your collective heads out of your rectal cavities and start officiating the series like it needs to be officiated.
Yeah, if you're going to qualify. Scrap practice. For the love.
You qualified. You don't qualify all last year with no practice,
Yeah.
with the exception of super speedways.
Let's see what the big deal is.
So why can't you?
We noted on the show last week a report from Adam Stern in Sports Business Daily. Talks between NASCAR and Dodge about rejoining the series have been out since the end of the 2012 season, and becoming the 4th maker in the series have stalled out, which led to some surprises from at least one of the 3 existing makers. Let's just say that they were willing to talk. Chevrolet and Ford have been pretty quiet about the whole thing, but Toyota Racing Development President David Wilson recently talked to NBC Sports and said this, quote, "Our perspective is we want to compete. We compete in the showrooms, and the more manufacturer engagement, the better. That's why we love sports car racing. There are 9 manufacturers we race against in IMSA. We love that. So it's terribly disappointing that we're still only 3 manufacturers in NASCAR. We're in far too delicate of a position as a sport because we can't afford to lose any one of us. NASCAR can't afford to lose any of us. But it's business. You don't know what's going to happen. We're in the midst of what appears to be a recession." Who is it that thinks that we're not in a recession? Oh, that's right, the president. Anyway, inflation is impacting each of us from a business perspective. Who said inflation's not really a problem? Oh, that's right, the president. Never mind. This isn't a political show. Anyway, Wilson went on to say, quote, "You want to be a little deeper in terms of manufacturers. We don't know. We weren't in there. We haven't been in the rooms or the chat rooms or the Zoom meetings or whatever it is that's taking place between representatives from Dodge and representatives from NASCAR. So I don't know what the hang-up is. I get it that Dodge says, hey, listen, we're in a championship run when it comes to the NHRA and the Camping World Drag Racing Series and whatever other forms of racing they happen to be involved in. NHRA being the most visible and obvious, at least here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is David Wilson's right. There is a disconnect here somewhere.
Huge.
And while at the beginning it seemed like he was kind of throwing Dodge and Stellantis, Dodge's parent company, under the bus, when you get further into it, terribly disappointing. We're still only 3 manufacturers in NASCAR, far too delicate of a position as a sport because we can't afford to lose any of us. NASCAR can't afford to lose any of us. You realize he's actually throwing NASCAR under the bus here. He's calling out NASCAR because I don't know what Dodge might be asking for. I don't know what NASCAR might be asking for when it comes to being a competitor in the trucks, Ram, Xfinity, and Cup competition with whatever model they're going to choose after next year when they end the current internal combustion engine versions of the Charger and Challenger. But I've seen mock-ups of a new Charger under the EV form, and while I'm not a huge fan of electric vehicles, I got to say the car looks pretty good. Kind of harkens back to kind of a hint of, let's say Dukes of Hazzard days.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So I like the way that they're going. I like that they could come in. I think they should be in. I mean, we've talked about the other possibilities. Nissan has a truck, so they could fit into all 3 top levels. Honda has a truck. They could fit into all 3 top levels. But doesn't Dodge seem the natural choice?
You would think.
So would I.
You would think so.
I'd love to see it. I really would.
Yeah.
We got to take a break here. We're going to start getting ready to transition into open wheel information. There's a little bit of IndyCar, not really a whole lot of NHRA this weekend, surprisingly. We were kind of thinking that there was. But IndyCar, Formula One, Formula E, all on deck. And if we got a little bit of time, we're going to talk about something that Matt had the chance to do earlier on in this week and kind of got surprised about some of the people he was able to do that particular situation with.
Yep.
IndyCar is on deck. Tony Kanaan wants to run the Indy 500. Does he have a ride? We'll tell you next on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.